Let's talk about density. My name is Michael Lentz, and I'm running for mayor of Coeur d'Alene, and this is the first part of my sort of longer form discussion on growth. Growth is the single most important issue that faces Coeur d'Alene and North Idaho more broadly. And so I'm running for mayor to give people an option for somebody who will, at least to the best of my ability, make sure that the growth is responsible, the growth is organic, and that the growth is paid for by the outsiders who are causing the growth to happen. I'm a little bit under the weather. You can maybe tell my voice is a little scratchy and hoarse. I've just recovered from the COVID. And so I have the best immunity possible. I'm basically invincible at this point, and I am ready to roll. So before we get into density specifically, let's talk for just a second about my view over all of this, and my platform is one of localism. So what that means is that localism essentially means that the city government should prioritize what is best for the city residents. Or the county government would prioritize what's best for the county residents, or the state government would prioritize what's best for the state residents. Excuse me. Now, that sounds really obvious, but that doesn't happen. At least certainly not in any sort of general way. That's not the culture of the government. That's not the culture of the people who are leaders generally. They do a variety of things, and they have a variety of priorities, and they just sort of pay lip service to locals in a lot of different times in a lot of different ways, and don't necessarily do what is the right thing or the best thing. So in my view across this subject of growth, I look at everything in terms of what is best for locals. Local businesses, for the people who rent here, for the people who work here, for the people who have houses here, for the people who live here. So I'll get more into depth in that in subsequent topics when I talk about outside predatory investors, outside predatory multinational corporations, things like that. It'll be a lot more obvious where my perspective on that comes from. But I just want to say up front that my view is one of localism, that I believe the city government should be protecting and advocating for the interests of locals, not for the interests of the market, not for the interests of Americans who don't live here. That's not the job of the city government to pave over everything and prepare everything for residents who are going to live here maybe 10 years from now. The job of the city government and the job of the mayor now, if I get elected as mayor, my job is to represent the people who are here now. My job is not to represent or to prepare for or to accommodate residents who maybe will live here in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. My job and the city government's job is to represent citizens who are here now. That's localism. So let's talk about density. It's a quick one. It's an easy one. It's an obvious one. You see density, and even here in my neighborhood, there's just even on my street, there's single family houses, there's duplexes, there's a whole cul-de-sac of duplexes, there's whatever the property management company built over here with 12 rental properties now. So what is this street supposed to be? Is it supposed to be single family houses for families? Is it rental duplexes for more, families that are in more of a transition? Or is it for transient renters from this property management company? Who knows? Who knows? Because apparently everyone can just do whatever they want and your neighborhood doesn't matter. So density is the obvious one, because as density increases and as more transient housing is built, you obviously notice the character and the culture of your community changing. And whether that's just even through the way that they're built, or that's through lots of people buying properties and turning them into rentals, that obviously changes the culture and texture and vibe of the community. It changes the community. It changes the neighborhood. So what's the standard? Nobody knows, because there really isn't one. And the comprehensive plan that CDA 2030 and Envision and all these guys are trying, they're sort of coming up with, I'm sure we'll have some sort of, well, we kind of want to preserve a little bit here and maybe we'll do something over here, whatever. I like Mr. Gookin's suggestion of turning neighborhoods into historical districts, which in theory should mean that they wouldn't be able to be changed for zoning and shouldn't be allowed to have a lot of rapid high density development. I would actually be fine if most of the city went in that direction. And I don't see any reason why it couldn't, other than we have to have city council members who will propose that and vote for it. So ultimately, when it comes to these things, density is the easiest one to spot and the easiest one. These 12 houses on my street just opened up, so now there's more cars on the street. At times, the road is only wide enough for one car because there's lots of other cars on the street now. There's obviously more traffic. Things like that are easier to notice. We notice that there's more people on the street. There's more people living here. There's more traffic. The street is clogged up. We notice that. And as density increases, we obviously notice that more and more. You notice the 95 is busier all the time. You notice that streets that didn't have any traffic on them now have some traffic. It can be difficult to make some left-hand turns. You notice the traffic. You notice more people. You notice your neighborhood changing. And so density is a very easy one to look at. And where does that come from? That obviously comes from developers proposing projects. And actually, let's start at the very beginning. There's going to be a certain amount of density that's going to be organic. There's going to be somebody who owns 5 acres and they want to sell that 5 acres, and somebody else wants to buy it and put 3 houses down where there was once only 1 house. And so then you're going to end up with 4 houses on 5 acres where there was once 1 house on 5 acres. That sort of density is organic. That sort of thing is going to happen. What's not organic is a developer buying 5 acres and making a proposal for 10 houses on the 5 acres. And then the developer waits for a year and then says, oh, actually, what we want to do is we want to build 20 houses. So they come to the city council and they say, well, now we need a zoning exception. We want to change the plan. We want to have 20 houses. And then they come back a year later and say, actually, we want to have 40 houses. Look at the demand. We need 40 houses. That's not organic. That's not, and that obviously doesn't even take into effect the neighborhood, the area, etc. That's just coming back for more. And to be fair, developers are incentivized to do that. And the city council oftentimes will say yes. In fact, the city council, various city councils. So even if you're not in Coeur d'Alene, you got to pay attention to who's on your city council, because it's happening everywhere. Those types of things are very obvious and should have some strict limitations to them. There should be obvious strict limitations in neighborhoods as far as zoning changes, as far as what is allowed, and as far as what keeps the neighborhood as the neighborhood. Density is the easiest thing to look at. And another example I'll give you, urban renewal districts, the URDs. That's just another thing where they designate an area that money, it moves around in order to redevelop the area because, urban renewal, and then the taxes for that area get subsidized by the other areas. So more other areas of town pay the taxes for that area because those taxes go to renew the urban area. And it's just a way of moving money around and paying for more development that's not organic. Coeur d'Alene is not an urban area. I've lived in Seattle and Nashville for 14 of the last 20 years. Coeur d'Alene is not an urban area. So this idea that we need urban renewal is not real. It's manufactured in order to inorganically drive growth. So that's another easy one. Just stop doing it. But you have to have city councilmen, you have to have a mayor, you have to have people in power who will stop doing it. You have to have people that are coming up with these plans who aren't urban planners from out of state. You have to have people who care about the area who want to maintain what's special about the area, coming up with the comprehensive plans, coming up with the overall plans for the area, and coming up with those zoning restrictions, coming up with putting neighborhoods as historical districts and things like that. So density is a very easy one to look at, because you can just say like, well, they want to build an apartment building. We don't want an apartment building. That's really obvious. But there are other ways in which the growth ends up getting driven to the point where fighting density doesn't matter, because eventually the political will to add density is going to overwhelm those who don't want density. So if you don't want density, you have to do something now preemptively to stop not just the density, but the other areas of growth, the outside investment, multinational corporations, because those things are going to advocate for and create density later, which I'll get into in the future videos. I want to try to keep them a little bit short. So if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to drop them below. Again, my name is Michael Lentz. I'm running for mayor. You can vote. You can even register the day at the polls on November 2nd. You can check out my website, strongyoungmayor.com. I'm not asking for any donations. I'm only asking for help spreading the help spreading the message, and for you to get involved if you want to do something to keep Coeur d'Alene special. It's up to you.